where is Bitcoin going to go and what are the potential paths that it's going to take in order to get there. So this is the question we're going to try to answer in today's market update video. Because if all you're doing is looking at the current price of Bitcoin every day, that's a surefire way to lose not only money in crypto, but also the opportunity to make more money. Because the bear market is really where most of the gains are made. During the bull market, sure, it's great because Bitcoin's always going up. But if you've invested in the middle of the bull market, you've already lost a big part of where it's going to be capitalizing on Bitcoin's cyclical returns. So without further ado, let's go back into the charts and analyze where is Bitcoin going to bottom and how it's gonna get there. So this is a new chart that I made on the website Lofi-Ledger.com. Again, this is a completely free resource for all of you guys. But basically, this kind of breaks down where Bitcoin's at in terms of the monthly cycles and gains that it's gonna do. So how does this chart work? So basically, this chart works is it's just basically just a table of like the years and the months, and each cell in the table is just the gain it made from the start of that month to the end of the month. So where did that month open and where did that close, and what is the percentage difference? And when we do this, we can have this monthly table of gains and losses. And at the bottom, we can actually have an average of all of these gains and losses, right? So if you look at this table, what we can see is a few things, right? So right now we're in July. And if you can see, July is actually usually a positive month, right? On average, it's at 7.7% gain. So if we end July positive, that's actually usually what happens, right? July is usually a positive month. In fact, if we just count all the previous months, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Out of the 13 months that we have here, only 4 of them, I think, were negative. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So 4 out of the 13 is negative. So it's highly likely that this month will also be a positive month, right? And on average, it's 7%. We're at 7.3% right now. So, we could still slightly go up and it will just be like kind of a normal month. What this really shows is like the potential path that it's gonna do per month. So this is kind of like a localized view of Bitcoin's performance. So like this month, what is our average guess of what it will be, right? In order to get like the long-term kind of flow or where it's gonna bottom, we have to zoom out and look at the charts. So this is the charts. This is the price of Bitcoin, right? So if we're looking at the price of Bitcoin, what we can do is actually look at previous historical cycles and how long did it take for it to get from top to bottom. So this is something that we've talked about before. What we did was we just drew like how many weeks. So this is the weekly candle. How many weeks does it take from top to bottom? Does it take for Bitcoin to bottom? So last cycle, we just put this bar at the top and then we just try to bring the end to the very bottom. So you can see this one took around 53 bars from top to bottom. We do that again for all the other cycles. So the next cycle before that, we do the same thing. This is the top. We draw it all the way to the bottom. That's probably around here. So around 53 bars as well. Or actually, is this it? Actually 51 bars. So maybe like 51, 53. Doesn't have to be super accurate, but you can see that this is where it's kind of at. 51 bars. So this just like 1 bar, 2 bars difference, right? The cycle before that, which is kind of the first cycle that we have here, is from this top to the bottom here. It's like 57 bars. Something like, actually, no, this isn't all the way here in the top. Let me just align this. Okay, top to bottom. I think the bottom's kind of here. So this one's 60 bars. So you can see all of it is just like 2-3 bars away from each other. The first cycle was 60 bars difference from top to bottom. The cycle after that was 51 bars, and the cycle after that is 53 bars. So this kind of gives us a range between 51 and 60 bars, right? So if we just look at it and just project like 52 bars, that's the average of the prior 2 cycles. 52 bars will actually put us in October. I think October, yeah. From the top, if we go here, actually it's 9th of November, I think, or no, 26th of October. So late October is where this bar pattern will get us. If we go back to like 51 bars, right? 51 bars, that'll put us in like the 18th of October. So mid to late October. And if we project this, just copy it and project it all the way to 60 bars, which is 60, 61 bars. Actually, just make it 62. 60, actually, no, it was 60 bars. Let's not cheat. Let's make it 60 bars. 60 bars. So 60 bars would put us around December, right? So this is giving us, if we just look at the bar pattern, we say 51 bars to 60 bars is where we're going to have the bottom. Right now, we're not yet in October or December. So this is telling us that we have ways to go time-wise. If we zoom in, actually, you can see that this middle band usually acts as like support or resistance. And this cycle before that, you can see when it's like going up, it hits the middle band, went back up, then it hits the middle band, then it goes back up. So it like kind of bounces in the middle band. And in the bear markets, you can see here also when it hits the middle band, goes down, hit the middle band, goes down. So what we did was we just like draw this line to the middle band, and we just try to see where this is gonna go. So right now we can see it is going up. It's about to touch the middle band, and then it's probably gonna get rejected and go down, right? And if we drew this, we're saying that probably around September it's gonna make or break this response, because like this is the bottom, and if we just draw like this channel and meet it with a band, that puts it around September, right? Where it'll probably make a decision going up or down, and then, I mean, plus or minus 1 or 2 weeks. This is the bands that we're seeing at 51 to 50. 51 to 60 bars is where we're going to see the bottom, which is either in October or December, right? According to this trend line model. Now, what's really interesting about this is we drew this line down here when it was still at 58K, right? And we said that this could move all the way to the band and it'll still be in a downtrend, right? And right now it's actually moving towards the band, right? If we zoom in, increase this resolution, you can see we're actually moving towards the band. So right now we're at 62K. It can go all the way up to 64K and we would still be in this band-like downtrend, right? And what's very interesting is this new chart, right? We said that it is going to be kind of a positive July, right? We were down here and then going up, if we hit 64K, that would put us in a positive July. Interestingly enough, also June was the downtrend. This was like the kind of big crash, and also June is a downtrend. You can see June is on average minus 2%. On average, June is a negative month. If we even remove this current year, 2026, right? See, I agreed it out. June was still a negative month even before June happened, right? So on average, it does end up negative. So when June printed a negative 20%, that was in line not only with the downtrend that we were seeing here, but it's also in line with the average monthly behavior, right? So these two things are like coinciding with each other. And so this allows us to like construct a possible path of where Bitcoin's gonna go. One, we can see that plus or minus 2 weeks, the bottom will be around October to December, plus or minus 2 weeks, because this was like plus or minus 2 weeks from the last cycle. And actually, the first cycle was plus or minus like 7 weeks. So, within like a month or a few weeks, the bottom would probably happen in this time period. Interestingly enough, if that does happen and we look at the calendar, what are the most likely negative months in which it'll happen, and what can we expect? So July is usually a positive month. So if we just take out 2026 for now, July is usually plus 7%. So we can actually expect July to end on a positive note, and we can probably end even in like 64K, and it will still be a downtrend. This is just all expected behavior from the monthly calendar and from the time-wise cycle from Bitcoin's history. Now, what's going to happen after July, right? On average, August is a positive month too, 1.6%. But this is one of the weakest positive months, right? So for example, you can see this only has the average of all the months are all negative except for June and September. And August is the next weakest month. So actually, if you look at August, out of the 13 months, most of them are actually negative. The only positive months in August is 1, 2, 3, 4, there's only 4 positive months in August, right? Let's just remove 2012 because it wasn't even a full year. So there were 4 positive months out of the 13 months, out of the 12 months. So August is also likely to possibly be negative, right? But on average, it's positive because it had this giant positive move in 2017. So we can just say August could be slightly neutral, right? We can go up like, just a few percentage points or be at the same place where we're at in July. And now, when we're looking at September, September is a negative month. It is actually the worst month if we remove the first year, right? It's the worst month so far in terms of the history if we don't include 2026. If we include 2026, it's the second because June was a negative month, right? But if we remove this data so that all months are the same, it is the worst month in crypto calendar on average, right? So what does a potential path look like? In the calendar monthly seasonality, it is saying that September is going to be probably a negative month. And in the crypto timeline calendar, it's saying that the bottom is around either October to December, right? October to December, plus minus a few weeks. So what these two things are kind of converging on is saying that it's going to be a negative September. And if it's plus minus 2 weeks, it's possible that the bottom will also be in September, right? You can see that this is probably minus 1 or 2 weeks from this bottom that we drew on 19th October. Could be late September, right? So at the end of September, probably have a pretty big or sizable crash that will lead us to lower levels, and that will probably be it, right? Now, you might be saying, okay, why September? Like this range is October to December. If it's plus minus 2 weeks, it could also happen later on, maybe December or January, plus minus 2 weeks, right? If we look at the calendar, right? If we look at the calendar and just look at all the historical months, the next weakest month is January. So if we include 2026, actually, the next weakest month is January, which is still a positive month, plus 3%. But it's kind of a toss up, right? It has a lot stronger months. I mean, if we, this is kind of dubiously playing with the data already, but if we remove the first 2 years, just because, that's like the beginning of crypto, January is literally also negative, right? But if we can include the first year, it was a pretty strong year. It was 64%, so it does bring our average up to 3.6. But anyway, if we just count it, even including the first year, I think half of the time it was negative. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 out of the 13 months are negative for January. So a 50% chance in January that it'll be negative, right? But in September, if we just count the negative months in September, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's also 7 out of 16. Out of 12, because it doesn't have 2026. So this is more than half. So there's a higher probability that September will be a negative month, and there's a higher probability time-wise, I think, that September will be really near the low, or when the next low will move. Namely, for three things. One, drawing this trend line, it looks like it's going to break sometime in September, right? So if we just draw a line on the current support on when it'll like try to meet this middle band, it'll be around September time frame. Two, if we timelines on when the usual bottom is going to be, it's probably going to be around October or December, plus minus a few weeks, which will put a likely date in September. And three, if we look at the seasonality, September is the worst month for crypto, or at least for Bitcoin. So given those three compounding factors, I think we're gonna have a positive July, a somewhat neutral August. It could be negative, it could be positive, but I think it'll also be a negative September. And I think in September or in August, that's probably gonna be a major move, and that might be the bottom actually. Now, if it doesn't play out that way, because these are probabilities. September was negative 7 out of the 12 times, right? So, I mean, what percentage is that? I'm not really good at mental math, but it's 58% of the time. So let's say 58% of the time September was negative. So we'll just bank that there's a 60% chance that September will be negative, and based on the time-based moves that we're seeing, that it's gonna be the bottom, right? If September is positive and it does not play out that it's the bottom, the next most likely time frame that it'll be in will be January. So January is at plus 3% historically, and it's 7 out of 13 instead of 7 out of 12, right? So there's a 53% chance for January that will be the bottom if it doesn't happen in September timeframe. So I mean, these things aren't super accurate, right? There's gonna be like a few weeks, a few days, whatever. It doesn't super matter. What's important is to have a pulse on where the market is at, because if you're not looking at this data, what happens is you're gonna pull up Bitcoin chart today. You're gonna see, oh, Bitcoin's at 64K. Last month, we bottomed at around, I don't know, 59K, I think 59K, 58K. So we're up, and you're still going to be feeling the emotions of the June crash, which was a 20% crash. And because you felt that crash, you're going to think, oh yeah, the bear market is over, right? And that's going to play into your emotions. You might all in, and then it crashes again. Maybe it crashes another 20%. I don't know. Let's say it crashes another 20%. And you're like, oh no, I give up. I don't know when it's going to end. And you sell everything. And then when you sell everything, it starts going up. Right? These are common emotional traps that happen in crypto. So what I'm trying to get you guys to realize is that if we look at this data, this gives us a clearer idea of what's going to happen in the markets, and it'll allow us to be more prepared when these moves happen, right? So what's going to happen, right? So what's going to happen is probably July is going to be positive. It's probably going to end this month positive. August is neutral or slightly negative, slightly positive. It's it doesn't matter. It has more negative months, but so it might be more negative, but sometimes it has really strong months. So anyway, August neutral. We don't know. It's a toss-up, but it doesn't really matter. September is probably going to be negative. So if crypto goes up in July and August, don't be like, oh no, I've missed the boat. It's highly possible that it'll still fall in September. And even then, even if the 58% chance in September doesn't work out, I think it might already be a good buying opportunity, even if the low will be January. And I mean, we'll reevaluate what happens in January. or what happens in September. But it might even be a good opportunity to buy in September already, even if it's not the bottom. Let's say January is the bottom. I think since September is the worst month historically for crypto, and it's coming into these levels time wise, it'll already be a good opportunity to scale in September, even if it's not the bottom. And why is that, right? So, okay. So the reason why I think that is because if we look at the previous cycles, right? When we look at these bottoms, right? It actually takes a few months for them to really bottom, right? So for example, this bottom that happened in the previous cycle, we spent around 7 bars or 49 days. That's like 1 month in that bottom, right? And if we just look at the cycle before that, we also spent how many days in the bottom? We spent 19 bars or 130 days in the bottom of the cycle before that, right? That was a pretty big time frame, 130 days, 19 bars, 19 weeks. And in the cycle before that, if we zoom out, the bottom was around here. We actually revisited it multiple times. So the bottom would be, it also took around 133 days. So get that, right? So 2 cycles ago, the bottom was actually just 133 days, flat out staying in that prices. The first cycle, it was 133 days, but we went up, touched the middle line, went down, then went up, then went down. So we revisited the bottom 3 times. And the most recent cycle, the cycle before this, because we don't know if the cycle has bottomed yet, it took around 1 month. So even if the bottom is in September, or if it's not in September, right? If September was negative, and even if that's not the bottom, it's gonna take a few months for it to play out, for the bottom to play out, and it's already gonna be a good time to buy, right? So let's say September crashes, and we're not sure if that's the bottom. Historically, it's been okay, right? Yeah, so since it's the worst month, just capitalize on that. We'll give more updates as the week goes on how I'm approaching these trades, but this is what I'm thinking is going to happen, and that's how I'm going to approach the market for now. So in September, I'm probably going to start buying some when it crashes. If it doesn't crash, I'm still going to buy some. And that's mainly because of these historical patterns, right? I'm still going to keep some cash in just in case January is going to be like the final crash. But I think it's going to be in September, and if that doesn't happen, I'll update you guys on how I'm going to approach the market. And even if it does bottom in September, we're going to have like a month to scale in, right? So I'm already kind of preparing for that. Lastly, how do you approach buying, right? So this is another thing that I put in my website, Lofi-Ledger.com. I made another video about this. But TLDR is you can't time the bottom perfectly. That's just something that we're going to have to accept. What we're going to do is we have to distribute our money in a way that best maximizes our probability of making it. So this is some chart. We have like this expected gains thing where, you see the monthly expected gains. So this is like, a coin toss. If you make $10 on heads and $5 and lose $5 on tails, on average you make $5, right? This expected gains is like that. It looks at like the risk level of Bitcoin, and then it tells you if it's a positive EV or not, right? So obviously negative EVs means you're losing money, but like lower the expected value, the more money that you're getting. The higher the expected value, the more money that you're potentially gonna get. But you also have to take into account that we might not make it all the way down, right? So what we do is we just want to spread our money out in these EV levels as well, so that even if we miss the boat on the actual bottom, we still have some position in Bitcoin. Because it's gonna suck, if Bitcoin is gonna go all the way up like 10x, does it really matter if you don't time the exact bottom, right? If you make 4x, that's already really freaking great, So yeah, I'm telling you this to expect when the potential path of where the actual bottom will be, which I think will be in September. But if it doesn't happen in September, it's still good to be purchasing Bitcoin then. If the actual bottom is in January, what's the difference between 4x versus 5x? And that's how I'm approaching it. So I'm putting in money now and trying to time the September, because I think that is when it's most likely to be the bottom. And if it doesn't, I'm still going to be putting money in September and see where the remaining of my money will go if I'm going to scale it in for the next probability, which will be January. So that's all for this video. I hope this video helped you guys. If you like this information, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.